We are at the public comments portion of our board meeting. So I know I talked to Josh about setting this up. So we'll the typical format for public comments is 30-minute allotment. It is a public comments. It doesn't lend itself well to be a dialogue session, but we will listen. We'll take notes. We'll consider your points. It may or may not seem like it, but after the public comment sessions, and especially during our executive sessions in the board meeting, we do discuss the things that are brought up in the public comments. So we do listen, we do take note. So at this time, we'll open the floor for public comments. Whoever would like to begin.
Something I want to discuss is, I guess I started looking into Common Core about a year and 4 months ago. We had one of the first meetings. And I look back at it, and I look where we're at now. And I guess I don't feel like I've seen a whole lot of change as far as how it looks like it's being implemented. I haven't heard of anything really changing. And so at the last meeting, I was really disappointed. I didn't really hear anybody who, I am for it, I like this and this, I am against it, I don't like this. There was a lot on the fence. I mean, there was somebody who kind of said they were for it, somebody who was against it, and then there's others who, well, I see the pros, I see the cons. Nobody gave real, concrete answers to what they thought about it, I guess. I felt like it was kind of a gray area. And I think after a year, there should be more concrete answers to what you guys think and feel. And especially, I'd like to look at one thing in particular. We all agree that we're worried about the data mining and some of the assessments. So I guess I don't know why we can't get together on that and come up with something to get rid of that. And we talk about having local control. That's been a big issue. We have local control. That was part of a resolution last time, I think, that you guys passed. And I feel like if we have local control, it shouldn't be a big issue to get rid of the park testing and some of the assessments and data mining, because we have control of it. No big deal, keep it out. And it makes me concerned that we don't have control of it because you guys should have some concern for it. So it's one or the other. Either way, we either don't have control, which means this is a scary situation, and we need to consider getting rid of it, or we do have control, and we need to seriously consider getting rid of the park testing and the data mining portions of it. Going a little further into that, some people have said at the past meeting, well, I don't like the testing, but I see some of the good sides. I see some of the pros, or I don't like the data mining. I see some of the pros and cons to it. I see both sides. When it comes to data mining, getting information from our children, how many pros do you have to need to say, oh, we can ignore that, that's fine? That's a serious issue, and I just don't see how you can overlook it and kind of ride the fence and just go with the flow of it. That's something that cannot just be overcome with a few good things. We need to come to a point where we say, okay, this 80% we think is good, this 20% has to go, or this 60% has to go. We can't say, well, I like 50% of it, I like 60% of it, so I'm okay with it. We have to get rid of the stuff we don't like. There's been other unions that have started to see these same reasons they don't like. Some Chicago teachers unions, New York teachers unions, some of the original writers. They're all pulling back for some of these same reasons, and I don't understand why it seems radical to us to have a serious discussion about pulling it back, which I do appreciate. Jose's mentioned us having a meeting about it, so I hope that goes through. That means a lot to me, and I think it means a lot to other people that we have a serious discussion about where to go from here. So in general, I've been getting mixed signals from you guys at the meetings, and then as far as in public, I don't see any action. I don't see anything that makes me believe you guys are really doing anything different. I know I've seen some of you come to different meetings. I've heard some of you come into different speakers, so that's good. But there has to be some action and results from it, or it just falls on deaf ears, it feels like. And I guess on the Boards of Education's page, it talks about remaining vigilant and safeguarding the instructions of our children, and that's where I come back to. It's been a year and 4 months. The data mining and the testing, and there's a lot of other issues, but we can agree on that. Can we keep the standards? If the teachers really like them, we can discuss that later. Look at getting rid of the testing. Look at getting rid of some of the parts that we can agree we don't like. And I think these things are bad for moral reasons and reasons just with the federal government being unconstitutionally where they shouldn't be. And bad things are gonna happen wherever good people don't stand up to do something. So I hope y'all look at it morally too, from your own principles, and think, if I know this is wrong, why won't I do something about it? And in 3 or 4 years, I hope you don't look back and go, well, I just went along with the crowd on it. Tried not to go against the grain.
The Common Core initiative has pushed its standards using the reasoning that there would be less standards per grade so that the students could go more in depth on each subject matter. In other words, the students will know fewer things, but they should know them better. We listened to our superintendent speak about this over a year ago at one of the first meetings regarding Common Core, and we heard our teachers at the last meeting also reflect on this. This seems like it is just allowing teachers the same amount of time to teach less subjects. For example, how in depth can you go into counting money? Once a child knows how to count money, what else can they learn that is really more useful than not learning another skill? And what about kids who would have learned how to count money quickly and would have already been waiting on others to catch up? Now they will have to wait longer while learning fewer subjects. It seems like this way holds smarter kids back while decreasing the amount of subjects the children will learn about. Counting money is just one example of where this could happen. I think it is easy to imagine this be applicable with a majority of subjects that children learn. Also, what happens to standards that were removed? Are they all not important? Where does this miscontent get taught at? Where can we see what was extracted from the previous standards? Does anyone feel confident that our children will be prepared if we are removing content that we have deemed necessary in the past to be prepared for college and working, and for programs like STEM? I will say also that I don't feel comfortable. It mentions in there that they can switch the curriculum around whenever they feel it necessary, and I think that that would be something that you should have to vote on and agree to, not just, let it be. So,
after the last meeting, several of the board members said they had concerns about Common Core, and then directly after the meeting voted unanimously to keep Common Core in our schools. I feel like the community is being misled, if not lied to. I mean, if you have concerns, then why 2 minutes after the meeting would you vote unanimously to keep Common Core in our schools? And I will say too, Shelley, you're the superintendent, you lead our schools, and had zero input in the last meeting, made no comments. Questions were asked directly and indirectly, and you didn't look at people when they talked, seemed very disinterested. And again, back to misleading the public, you put in the newsletter that, we will keep local control. If you read the standards, once everything's implemented, the local schools will have 15% control over what's learned in our schools. I hardly call that control. That's all I
Now, a good curriculum, I just feel that we really need to do our homework and research this and make sure this is best for our kids and grandkids. This will affect future generations for years to come, and I think we really just need to really make sure we're doing the right thing. Is this really going to be better for the kids, or is it going to be worse? We can't make that mistake because we're going to regret it. We got to make sure that we know all the facts, we know what's going to happen. And if the government's going to have complete control, we don't want that. We want to be able to teach the kids the way we've been doing, with the excellence we have been doing. And I think we just need to make sure that we don't lose that.
I'm Judy Garrett, and I guess what I'm going to share is more from the heart with a little bit of fact in there too. But I want to quote something from a Nigerian woman, and I have a little trouble with her name. It's an interesting one, but Oju Ikachoka, a Nigerian woman who wrote an open letter to Melinda Gates. So a few weeks ago, I stumbled upon the plan and promise of Melinda Gates to implant the seeds of her legacy in '69 of the poorest countries in the world, most of which are in the Sahel, Africa. Her pledge is to collect pledges for almost $5 billion in order to ensure that the African woman is less fertile, less encumbered, and yes, she says more liberated. With her incredible wealth, she wants to replace the legacy of an African woman, which is her child with the legacy of child-free sex. So what does this have to do with Common Core? This is the type of persons behind Common Core. In an excerpt from Phyllis Schlafly, an article from the Eagle Forum, there is no mention in education in the U.S. Constitution because the founding fathers believed education is a parental and a state issue. Our laws still reflect that assumption, but that concept has been widely violated in recent years by the flow of federal money with strings attached. And we all know that. We've had strings attached when we thought, oh, there's no strings attached. Some say Gates is a promoter of global sameness of education as defined by the UNESCO and the United Nations. Gates has expressed agreement with UN policies that many Americans oppose, such as Agenda 21, which promotes global governance at the expense of the private property and national sovereignty. We have been so very blessed in the school system to an open and able to express our faith. We all want what is best for our children, and so as a Christian Catholic mother, my faith says, a mother teaches her children the right way of life with tenderness, with affection, and with love, because she didn't learn it from books, but learned it from her own heart. The University of Moms is the heart itself, and that is sort of, it's a quote, out of quotes, sort of from one of our popes. I think that this is where and why the hesitation, and sense of something being wrong with this whole Common Core stuff, and where that comes in. We also know as Christians, as Catholics, that things that are afraid to be exposed by the light are from the dark, and so much of Common Core has been brought into the light, has not been brought into the light. It has been kept hidden, and to me this is a sure sign of something wrong. So for me, just the knowledge of Bill Gates, any of that association on just a heart and a common sense level is all I need to know, that there's something wrong. So I really hope that you will, if nothing else, with all the information, and it was information overload, please look into your hearts. Look into your hearts and your souls, and really think hard of what you're saying yes to. Thank you.
I'd like to say one of the biggest problems I have with it is the fact that it is unproven, untested. We are the guinea pigs. We're going down a path that's never been traveled before. And from what I see so far, I don't like one bit of it. They're changing the way we learn math, and the math that we've learned for years has created skyscrapers and all kinds of magnificent, creations, you know, the automobile, etc. So for us to change that, I just don't get that. Math is math. I'm an engineer, so I know math. That's not math, in my opinion. But that's my biggest fear. And then the fact that they can change it at any time, we have no say. So where is your control? I think it's an illusion myself. That's all I got to say.
On this. So after the last school board meeting, there's a lot of buzz going around that made it seem that teachers and administration feel the fight against the Common Core initiative is against them, when in reality it is the opposite. We applaud the teachers who were here and were brave enough to tell the crowd why they feel Common Core standards are good. Even though our opinion is opposite, that's okay. It's okay to disagree. That's the beauty of the country we live in. We can disagree. Life would be very boring if everyone agreed. However, of the many teachers I have directly asked about Common Core, be it locally, in Indiana, or across the country, few of them felt good about it, and this group crosses all party lines, political, and religious affiliations. And that is why I choose to go with my research, my gut, and what I know is right in my heart. The Common Core initiative is not just standards. It is a whole package. It's about having teachers evaluated on students' test scores and the undue pressure that puts on students to perform well. It's the ridiculous amount of classroom time spent doing test prep and test review when that time could be spent learning more new and exciting things. It's the fact that almost 30 days of the school year will be spent taking tests that we do not get to see. It's the fact that more and more of our children's personal data are going to be sent who knows where without our permission. It's the fact that one man, Bill Gates, has spent billions of dollars to promote this initiative for personal reasons. It's the fact that this same man has awarded curriculum writing companies such as Pearson millions of dollars to align their curriculum to Common Core. It's the fact that hundreds of early childhood educators have stated that the K-3 standards are developmentally inappropriate. It's the fact that this is an experiment on our kids and that we won't know the results until it's too late. This is a fight against Common Core, and it is a fight for our teachers. It's a fight for the many teachers who have spoken to us anonymously for fear of losing their jobs. It's a fight for teachers that are wrongly judged on students' test scores. It's a fight for teachers who are sick of constant assessments and never getting to know their students because they don't have enough time to teach. It's a fight for local teachers to have a say not in just how they teach, but what they teach as well. It's a fight for parents who are afraid to speak out and don't know where to turn. And most importantly, this is a fight for our children. I've been told there is an old saying in teaching that this too shall pass. However, never has the federal government had such a heavy hand in the education of our local children. We fight for our children because we love them and we fear for them. We know that all of you teachers do as well, but we must continue the fight for what we believe to be true because we owe that much to our children and their futures.
Some of you that are new here never are just now getting into this. Bill Gates, and the reason why you hear his name so much is because he is so heavily involved. Besides the federal government funding Common Core, Bill Gates is all over. So when you go on the school website and check out what is on there, and that's fine, or you go on the ODE, when you look at the myths versus facts, and et cetera, when you look at the organizations that have put that on, such as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Fordham Institute, the Hunt Institute, whatever, make sure you follow the money trail, because I have yet to find an organization that does not lead back to Gates and his money, okay? There's a report that just came out this week that both sides agree on, pro and against, that Gates has invested over $2.3 billion into the Common Core. The only thing he's put more money into is Planned Parenthood, promoting abortion, and population control in Africa. I don't agree with either one of them, and I hope most of you would agree with me. So that tells you the type of person this man is. He's not a good person, and yet his name is all over these standards, now all over the curriculum, because he's given Pearson, the monopoly that owns the textbook companies, you know, all of this money to align all these Common Core books to these standards. So check out who's writing these standards and who's behind all of this. My main thing is, I've already talked for a year now, a year and a half, about my issues, and obviously they're the same as what most of you have. But I do just want to touch a little bit on what Laura said with early childhood health and educational professionals. Back in March of 2010, they came out, they issued a statement. These are early childhood psychologists. And I never really understood this at first, you know, because there's a lot easier issues to kind of understand with it being unproven, untested, unconstitutional. So it was easier for me as just a concerned parent and citizen to understand that, because I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a teacher. And the whole standards being age inappropriate, I just didn't resonate with me until I went and, well, this report came out, and 138 child psychologists said that, you know, they have grave concerns about how these standards are written. And so then I also went to Columbus and went to the Common Core 101 seminar, and I always say her name wrong, Megan Kosnick. She's a child clinical psychologist out of Indianapolis. And I listened to her talk, and I encourage everybody to go to Ohioans Against Common Core website and at least listen to what she says, because she's really easy to understand, and it really makes sense on how she explains how, you know, ideas are abstract and you can't learn them at a certain age. You know, she really makes you understand what is age appropriate, and she explains why these standards are age inappropriate. It's not so much like I understood the whole sexual content and you know, not being proper in that way. Obviously, I think we all understand that. But there's certain things that the kids just cannot grasp. And I actually learned that it's probably been, I talked to Jenny a few weeks ago about it. My daughter brought home a test. It's, I got it right here. Show what you know on the Common Core for grade 7, assessment 1. And you know, as much as I feel like I'm on this Common Core, everything still slips by. I've got 3 kids, and I've got paper after paper coming home, so I don't get to see everything. And I would have missed this too. But she came home, and for that whole night, she's like, Mom, I bombed this test. And she goes, I didn't do good at all. And she goes, I just didn't get it. I didn't understand the words. And she does great on tests. She does great on assessments. She's always been in the accelerated part of the testing. So, you know, I was kind of like, okay, you know, I'm sure it's fine, you know, no big deal. And she talked about it that whole night, and she was just really upset about it. So I said, you know, just bring the test home and we'll look over it and see what was wrong with it. And so I kind of forgot about it, and 3 days goes by, and she brings it home. And she was all excited. She's like, hey, I only missed 3 out of, I don't know how many questions there were, maybe 12 questions. I don't know, 14. She goes, I must be a really good guesser. She was like, oh, she's like, at least I'm good at that. I'm like, okay, you get that from your dad. But so anyways, she brings this home, and like it just like it clicked with me. I looked at this and I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way you could get this. There's 2 parts of this test, and the first part is called Of the Origin and Design of Government in General from Common Sense, 1776 by Thomas Paine. You know, looking at that, I think, oh, I remember reading that, late senior year, I believe. You know, that's a great book. It's all about the evils of big government. It, you know, promotes what our founding fathers stood for, and, you know, what this country was built on. And I thought, man, you know, that's a great read. But then I started reading, and I thought, wow, I've forgotten some of this, and I had to go look up some of this. And I thought, here I am, you know, not understanding some of these words, and she's 13. You know, so this test had excerpts from this book, and mind you, when you go on the Common Core Reading Exemplar Appendix B, this is actually rated for 11th and 12th grade reading, probably when they're taking some form of government class, I would assume. That's why that would be on there. So it's not that I have a problem with that reading material, it's that I have a problem that my daughter had to sit there and try to understand it and rack her brain and then answer questions to it, only to be frustrated and just come home and just think, man, you know. And it wasn't just her. She said every kid in the class was like, we didn't understand this language. Okay, so I'm like, well, I understand that. So then I go to part 2, and it's a poem, Give Me the Splendid Silent Sun. And I thought, okay, well, we'll read through that, and it was actually pretty confusing, and I didn't really understand it myself in the beginning, but as I read it over a couple times, and then I actually went and Googled it because I kind of wanted to see what were some comments about it, and it's actually pretty controversial. It's another thing that actually after reading it, I'm glad she didn't understand, and I'm glad it was age inappropriate at this moment, because in the beginning it talks about how this guy lives in the city, and he's just wanting to go to the country. You know, he's thinking, you know what, the city life's so, you know, as crazy as it is. He talks about the tranquility and the peacefulness of the country, and, you know, he's just like, maybe, you know, that would just be the life to live. It's long, so unless I read it. But you get to part 2 of it then, and then he talks about how, you know, I would be like a fish out of water. There's no way I could live my life in the country because I've already been exposed to the I don't know, the sins of the city or the excitement of the city. And it talks about how the pleasures of the city are enticing to him. And so obviously she didn't understand this because she's 13, but I don't know why my daughter had to read this, because line 25 of the poem says, give me interminable eyes, give me women, give me comrades and lovers by the thousand. Let me see new ones every day. Let me hold new ones by the hand every day. And he goes on to talk about the bars and the Broadway and all of that fun, exciting stuff in the city that you don't get experience in the country life. Of course, she didn't understand it. She didn't understand that this meant that, you know, what it did. I went to my freshman son, and of course, he's like, duh, Mom, you know what it means. And I'm like, well, you know, explain it to me. And he got the concept, you know, living in the city, that's acceptable to have multiple sexual partners, whether it be homosexual, heterosexual, whatever it is. But, you know, she didn't get this at the age of 13. I guess I look at that and I think, man, there's got to be a better lesson out there. And who wrote this? Why put it in the first place? And that goes along with that whole Appendix B. I know we get to pick our curriculum, but you look at some of them books in there, and I just think, and I know Fort Recovery wouldn't pick those books, but I think, who's putting these books in here? Why have them in? It doesn't make sense. I mean, you guys have said yourself, we would never put The Bluest Eyes or Dreaming in Cuba or, whatever, some of those books that we've seen out there. So why do we want other schools to teach that to their kids? I've been to several meetings, and I talked to a lady whose daughter's up in the Toledo school system. She's reading Bluest Eyes. How far is Toledo from here? Not very far. And for any of you that want to read about Bluest Eyes, go Google it and see what it says in there. I would never be able to even say the words. It's so embarrassing. And then I guess the last thing I want to say is, quick question about I know Laura has met with you guys about the textbooks. you know, since we know this is all going on in Ohio right now, I think they just came out with a Senate, in the education today in the Senate, to put out a bill. I don't know all the language in it yet. We haven't gotten that far yet. But they're really trying to look at this because Missouri's pulled out now, North Carolina's about to pull out, Indiana has pulled out. There's still issues with that because even though we say we have local control, for any of you that have followed Indiana's fight, the federal government is threatening them now, basically, with the No Child Left Behind pulling that waiver. So the federal government's all over this. I don't even know if we can get this out at the state level. That's the problem. That's how much the federal government has control over our state. So it's going to be a hard fight. It's going to be scary, and we're going to need people to constantly be calling their representatives, and if you believe that this is wrong for your kids. And the last thing is principals. Yeah, Matt. I don't think Mr. Hobbs is here. I just read recently. It's called the Principal Alliance Fellowship Initiative. That has just come out recently by President Obama. Has anybody read about that? Or Matt, have you heard anything about that? Oh, thank God. It's something that these principals now are allowed to apply for. Everybody knows that Obama's got czars. This is a new czar organization type thing that he's put together. And he's decided that since all this Common Core stuff's being implemented and it's fallen apart like Obamacare did, he's decided to reach out generously, free of charge, to come into our schools 20 hours a week and help educate our principals on all these federal initiatives so they understand what's going on. We have to apply for that. So I'm just begging the school board right now and our principals to not apply for that fellowship. That would be awesome if we could stop that at least, okay? Because really federal agents in our schools is not going to go over here, and I wouldn't think it would happen, but it has just recently come out, so I just want to make you guys aware of that, so that is not what happens at our school at least. The Principal Alliance Fellowship, PAF, and then of course along with my other issue is with the textbooks, just make sure that we are really diligent with them, and you know, if the testing stops, you know, what do we do with all these tests that are these books that are Common Core line? That's my issue. And then I lied, one more thing. The opting out. I would appreciate, just knowing what I know that obviously I'm against Common Core. So going forward in the fall, I would appreciate, like, I don't know if we need the administration or if we need the board to prepare a packet for parents of the opt-out forms. And just let parents, and I think pass them out, and let parents know that that's going to be an option for us next year. I don't know, I mean, obviously I'm sure everybody's kind of followed what's happening in Salina. They did not let their parents opt out, and the kids were forced to go in and say that they are not going to take the test, which I think should be a parental issue. But I know here, I don't think we had that problem this year with some parents opting out. So next year going forward, if Ohio can't get these PARCC tests stopped, I would hope that the parents would be sent home a form so everybody knows their options, because I will opt my kids out next year. I will not subject them to, this kind of crap. So I just want people to know that's an option, and I would like to make sure I have the official forms in the right form, so I get that in my kid's file and I can get it taken care of. Even possibly over the summer would be nice, so it's in their file and I don't have to worry about it when school starts and everything's like crazy hectic. So that's my question to you guys. Thank you.
How can parents opt out?
It's supposed to still be our parental right because they're our kids. So we should have full control as to what happens to our kids. But there is some resistance for other reasons, because if the schools don't get 95% of, I believe it's 95%, you guys can correct me if you're wrong, but if we don't get 95% of the kids to take the test, then there's repercussions on the district rating, and I don't know if money's tied to it or not, but there are some issues there. But as of right now, there shouldn't be a problem with us opting our children out. And that's where you stop feeding the beast too. Because right now, this is all about controlling money. The government gives us the race to the top dollars. And when you look at these online tests, what is it, $15 to $35 on average?
PARCC is $24 now. No, they lowered it.
PARCC is, okay. The company Pearson and Gates, all this online testing costs money. Per kid, per test, is I heard it was 15 to 35 on average, is how much these companies get. So see, there's two parts. This is about big business, people profiting off of our kids, and then it's also about a hidden agenda when it comes to socialism, communism, and we've already touched on all that. So there's two parts there that we have to look at of the players that are involved in this. It's not what's in the best interest of our kids for them. Like we have the best interest at heart here. They don't. It's either money or power. Those two things.
I think I can attempt to sum up what Adrian said and everybody said here tonight. We had a petition going around, had 300 plus people on it. I saw most of those names. Very respected people in the community. I don't know if you guys even took a look at them. I guess you threw it out the window when you got up to the board meeting. And then I read the paper the next day, well, we draw up a resolution, we're going to have local control. Now, what concerns me, if that's the same local control that we had when they took God out of schools, we had a lot of luck with that, didn't we, guys? I've got a little article here, came in the Commercial Review that sums this thing up. It's the big picture. Who is Saul Alinsky? Well, to our president and Hillary Clinton and most of the people in Obama's cabinet, he is God. But Saul David Alinsky was a communist American community organizer and writer. He is most noted for his book, Rules for Radicals, which to liberals is their Bible. Our president is turning this great nation into a social stack. That is what he meant when he said back in 2008, he was 5 days away from fundamentally transforming America. We're seeing it. In Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals, there are 8 levels of control that must be obtained before you are able to create a social state. The first is most important. Here are the 8 rules. Now, unless you guys got your head buried in the sand for the last 8 years, you've got to know this is going on because you can see it going on. Health care. You've got to get control of health care. Control health care and you control the people. Poverty. That's number 2. Increase the poverty level as high as possible. Poor people are easier to control and will not fight back if you are providing everything for them to live. Makes sense. The president's a smart man. Don't take anything away from him. Not smart in our eyes, but he knows what's going on. He's got an agenda. Debt. Increase the debt to an sustainable level. That way you are able to increase taxes, and this will produce more poverty. Got a plan, guys. Gun control. Remove the ability to defend themselves from the government. How you like it? That way you are able to create a police state. You think it won't happen? Okay. Welfare. Take control of every aspect of their lives. Food, housing, and income. Number 6. What do you think that is? Education. Take control of what people read and listen to. Take control of what children learn in school. They got Common Core in parentheses. Number 7, religion. Remove the believe in God from government and schools. Class warfare. Divide the people into the wealthy and the poor. This will cause more discontent, and it will be easier to take or tax the wealthy with the support of the poor. Does any of this sound like what is happening in the United States today? Alinsky merely simplified Vladimir Lenin's original scheme for world conquest by communism under Russian rule. Stalin described his converts as useful idiots. Yes. The useful idiots have destroyed every nation in which they have seized power and control. It is presently happening at an alarming rate in the United States. It may be too late to reverse the decline. Wake up, people. It's here already. I don't think anybody can deny that. This is written by a farm boy over in Farmland, Indiana. He done figured it out. I don't suppose he had much of an education. You know, they want us to bicker. They want, the president, he wants civil unrest. So he can come in here and he can declare martial law, bring out his troops. I'm a veteran. Mitch, you're a veteran. You're a veteran, aren't you? No? Okay. Anyway, I read someplace that there's a question. If you go in the military now, there's a question that says, if given the command by the president, will you kill another American? Can't give that some thought, guys. It's here. If you want to deny it, put your head back and say it. I'm scared to say it. That's all I got to say.
We're just a little bit over the 30-minute mark, so I think public comments for tonight will be over, but we do appreciate we will take into consideration the comments. I've taken a lot of notes. We will discuss it. And again, thanks for coming out. We appreciate your feedback.